The massive space station looked like a glowing metal city floating in the darkness of space. Hannah pressed her face against the small window of the transport ship and stared at the galactic apex arena. She had never seen anything so huge in her life. "Stop looking like a tourist," her older brother Park Taman said from the seat beside her. He was fixing his diplomatic uniform and looked nervous. "Remember, we are here to represent Earth? Try not to embarrass us." Hannah rolled her eyes. "Just look in, Taman. It's not like I'm going to break anything. It's exactly what I'm worried about." Taman muttered under his breath. The transport ship slowly moved closer to the station. Hannah could see other ships from different planets docking at the same time. Some ships looked like giant crystals that sparkled with their own light. Others looked like living creatures with wings and tentacles. Earth's simple metal transport ship looked very plain next to them. "It's first time seeing the arena?" asked Kim Do-yeon, the Earth military advisor who was sitting across from them. He was a quiet man with sharp eyes who seemed to notice everything. "Yes," Hannah said. "It's amazing." "How many people can fit in there?" "About 200,000, Do-yeon replied. "Beings from all over the galaxy come to watch the Apex tournament. It's the biggest fighting competition in known space." Hannah's eyes grew wide. She had heard about the tournament, but she didn't know it was this important. "Who's the current champion?" "Vexstar of the Zephyrian Empire," Taman answered quickly. "He's held the title for 7 years. He's 12 feet tall and made of living crystal. His people are one of the most powerful races in the galaxy. And he's never lost a fight," Do-yeon added quietly. The transport ship shook slightly as it connected to the docking bay. Hannah felt her stomach flip with excitement and nervousness. She was just a 22-year-old engineer from Earth's outer colonies. She had never been this far from home before. "Listen carefully," Taman said, turning to face his sister. "Earth just joined the Galactic Federation 6 months ago. Most aliens still think we're primitive. They call us Deathworlders because our planet is so dangerous compared to theirs." "What's wrong with being from a dangerous planet?" Hannah asked. "Nothing, but they think it makes us violent and stupid," Taman explained. "We need to prove that humans can be civilized and peaceful. That's why this diplomatic mission is so important." The ship's door opened with a hiss. Air from the station flowed in, carrying strange smells and sounds. Hannah could hear many different languages being spoken at once, along with mechanical noises. In what sounded like music, they walked through the docking bay, and Hannah's mouth fell open. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the space. Some floated in the air, others walked on 6 legs, and some looked almost human, except for their blue or green skin. "Stay close," Taman warned. "Don't stare at anyone." But Hannah couldn't help herself. She saw a group of beings that looked like walking trees, their bark-like skin covered in glowing patterns. Near them, small flying creatures with butterfly wings carried messages between larger aliens. In one corner, she spotted what looked like a living cloud of gas that somehow wore clothes. "The diversity is incredible," she whispered to Do-yeon. "Each species evolved on different worlds with different conditions," he replied. "Some come from planets with low gravity, others from worlds covered in water or ice. Earth's high gravity and dangerous environment make us physically stronger than most of them. But they're often more advanced in technology." They followed signs, written in dozens of languages, toward the main arena. The hallways were wide enough for the largest aliens to walk comfortably. Hannah noticed that most other beings gave them curious looks. Some seemed friendly, but others looked down at them with obvious dislike. "Why are they staring at us like that?" Hannah asked. "'Cause we're new," Taman said. "And because some of them don't want us in the Federation." They entered the main arena. Arya and Hannah gasped. The fighting pit was enormous, surrounded by rising levels of seats that seemed to go up forever. Even now, hours before the tournament would begin, thousands of aliens were already finding their places. The opening ceremony starts in 1 hour. Taman checked his watch. "We need to find our seats in the diplomatic section." As they walked toward their assigned area, Hannah saw a group of tall, crystalline beings near the center of the arena. They sparkled like diamonds in the artificial light, and their movements created soft musical sounds. "Zephyrians," Do-yeon said. "Quietly, the champion's people." The largest of the crystal beings stood in the center of the group. He was at least 12 feet tall, with sharp crystal points covering his body like armor. His face was angular and alien, but somehow beautiful. In a cold way, blue light pulsed through his crystal body like a heartbeat. "That's Vextar," Taman said, the Apex champion. Even from a distance, Hannah could feel the power radiating from him. The other aliens around him seemed small and weak in comparison. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. "He's impressive," Hannah admitted. "He's also completely ruthless," Doyan added. "I've watched recordings of his fights. He doesn't just defeat his opponents, he destroys them. The arena medical team has to rebuild most challengers from scratch." "And he's held the title for 7 years?" Hannah asked. 7 years and 43 fights, Taman confirmed. No one has even come close to beating him. They found their seats in the diplomatic section, which gave them a perfect view of the arena floor. Other human delegates were already there, along with representatives from dozens of other worlds. Hannah noticed that the humans seemed nervous and stayed close together, while the aliens from older Federation worlds moved with casual confidence. "Remember," Taman said one more time, "we're here as observers. Don't draw attention to yourself. Don't start any trouble. Just smile, nod, and try to look civilized." Hannah nodded, but she was barely listening. She was watching Vextar and his crystalline followers as they moved around the arena like they owned it. The champion's blue light pulsed brighter, and she could swear he was looking directly at her. "The opening ceremony is about to begin," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "All beings, please take your seats." As the lights dimmed and the ceremony started, Hannah had no idea that in just a few hours, her life would change forever. She had no idea that she would soon face the most powerful warrior in the galaxy. She was just a young engineer from Earth, excited to see her first alien fighting tournament. But even then, something deep inside her was already stirring. Something that would not accept insult or disrespect. Something that would soon shake the entire galaxy. The ceremony began with a flash of light and the sound of 1,000 alien voices singing in harmony. Apex tournament had officially started. The opening ceremony was like nothing Hannah had ever seen. Lights danced through the air in patterns that hurt her eyes to look at directly. Strange music filled the arena, mixing sounds from 100 different worlds. Some aliens in the crowd glowed brighter during certain songs, while others changed colors completely. "This is incredible," Hannah whispered to her brother. Taman nodded, but he kept checking his notes. "The ceremony introduces each of the tournament fighters. Pay attention, we need to report back to Earth about their abilities." A floating platform carried the first fighter into view. It was a massive creature that looked like a bear made of metal, with steam coming from its joints. The crowd cheered as information about the fighter appeared on screens around the arena. "Gorak the Iron Beast," Doyan read from his translator device. "From the heavy gravity world of Maltos, 47 wins, 3 losses. More fighters followed. A snake-like being that could stretch its body to incredible lengths. A creature made of pure energy that sparked and crackled as it moved. Twin fighters who seemed to share the same mind. Each one looked more dangerous than the last. How do they decide who fights who?" Hannah asked. "Random selection," Taman replied. "But the champion doesn't fight until the final match. He only faces whoever wins all the other battles." The ceremony continued for another hour. Hannah watched in fascination as each fighter showed off their abilities. Some could fly, others could turn invisible, and one seemed to be able to control gravity itself. Then the lights dimmed to almost nothing. A single spotlight appeared in the center of the arena, and the crowd fell completely silent. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," announced the arena's voice system. "Please welcome your Apex champion." Vexstar walked slowly into the spotlight, and Hannah felt her breath catch in her throat. Up close, he was even more impressive than before. His crystal body caught the light and threw it back in brilliant flashes. Each step he took made a sound like breaking glass, but somehow musical. He raised his arms and blue energy crackled between his fingers. The energy formed shapes in the air. A sword, a shield, a bird that flew in circles before disappearing. The crowd cheered louder. 7 years undefeated. The announcer continued. 43 victories. The strongest being in known space. Vexstar's crystal face showed no emotion, but Hannah could see the pride in the way he held himself. He knew. He was the best, and he wanted everyone else to know it too. Now that's what I call a warrior, said a voice behind them. Hannah turned to see Lee Sumi, Earth's xenobiologist, taking a seat nearby. His crystal structure is fascinating. I've been studying his species for months. Any weaknesses? Dojan asked quietly. None that I can see, Sumi replied. Their crystal bodies are incredibly strong. They can channel energy through their structures and use it as weapons. They're also naturally resistant to most forms of damage. The ceremony ended with Vexstar demonstrating his power. He pointed at a practice dummy on the far side of the arena and released a blast of blue energy. The dummy didn't just break, it turned to dust instantly. Impressive, Taman said. No wonder he's never lost. As the lights came back up, the crowd began to move. Some aliens headed for the exits, while others gathered in small groups to discuss what they had seen. The tournament battles wouldn't start until the next day, so this was a time for socializing and making deals. Come on, Taman said, standing up. We should meet with the other diplomatic representatives. It's important to make connections. They made their way down toward the arena floor, where tables had been set up for the diplomatic reception. Hannah stayed close to her brother, but she couldn't help looking around at all the different aliens. Some were eating foods that glowed, or moved on their plates. Others were communicating through color changes or sound patterns her ears couldn't understand. Stay calm, Taman reminded her. Smile and nod. Don't say anything unless someone asks you a direct question. They approached a group of tall, thin aliens with silver skin and large black eyes. Taman introduced himself and began discussing trade agreements. Hannah tried to pay attention, but the conversation was boring compared to everything else. Happening around them, she noticed a commotion near the center of the floor. A crowd had gathered around something, and she could hear excited voices. Curious, she took a step closer to see what was happening. Hannah, Taman called softly. Stay here. But Hannah was already moving. She pushed through the crowd carefully, trying not to bump into anyone. The beings around her were much taller than she was, so she had to squeeze between them to get a better view. At the center of the crowd, she saw Vexstar. He was surrounded by other Zephyrians and several aliens who seemed to be reporters or officials. They were all talking at once. Asking questions about his training and his plans for the tournament, Hannah found herself staring at him again. This close, she could see that his crystal body wasn't perfectly smooth. There were tiny flaws and lines running through it, like cracks in ice. His eyes were the strangest part. They glowed with the same blue light as the rest of him, but they seemed to look right through everything. She was so focused on studying him that she didn't notice she was still moving forward. She pushed past a small floating alien and took another step, trying to get an even better look at the champion's crystal structure. That's when she bumped into him. It wasn't a hard collision. She barely touched his arm with her shoulder. The contact was enough to make Vexstar stop talking and look down at her. The crowd around them fell silent. Hannah looked up at the 12-foot-tall champion, her heart suddenly beating very fast. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean to what? Vexstar interrupted, his voice like breaking glass. Is this thing doing here? The translator in Hannah's ear made his words clear, but she could hear the disgust in his tone even without translation. He was looking at her like she was something dirty he had found on his shoe. I said I'm sorry, Hannah repeated, taking a step back. I was just trying to see you were trying to see. Vextar's voice grew louder. You Deathworlder. Scum think you can just push your way anywhere you want. More aliens gathered around them. Hannah could feel their eyes on her, some curious, others amused. She felt her face getting red with embarrassment. I didn't push anyone, she said, her voice getting stronger. I said I was sorry for bumping into. You? Sorry? Vextar laughed, but it sounded like breaking bottles. Your entire species should be sorry. You crawled out of your dangerous little world, and now you think you belong with civilized beings? We are civilized, Hannah said, anger starting to replace her embarrassment. Civilized. Vextar leaned down until his crystal face was close to hers. You come from a world so violent and deadly that it would kill most beings in days. You are made for violence and destruction. You have no place here among your betters. The crowd was growing larger. Hannah could hear whispers and comments from the aliens around them. Some seemed to agree with Vextar, while others appeared uncomfortable with the confrontation. Watch where you step, Deathworlder scum, Vextar continued, his voice carrying. Across the reception area, your kind should know their place in the natural order. Hannah felt something hot and angry building in her chest. She had dealt with bullies before, but never one who was 12 feet tall and made of living crystal. Still, she wasn't going to let him talk to her like that. My place? She said, looking up at him without backing down. And where exactly is that? Beneath me, Vextar said simply. Beneath all of us. Then, without warning, his crystal hand swept across and struck her face. The slap sent Hannah flying backward. She hit the ground hard and slid across the smooth floor for several feet before stopping. Her lip was split and bleeding, and her cheek felt like it was on fire. The entire reception area went completely silent. Even the background music seemed to stop. Hannah slowly pushed herself up from the floor. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. She wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand and looked up at Vextar. Let this be a lesson to all Deathworlders, the champion announced to the crowd. Know your place in the natural order. Some of the aliens laughed. Others looked shocked. A few seemed almost embarrassed by what they had witnessed. Hannah got to her feet slowly. Her face hurt, but she didn't look away from Vextar's glowing eyes. Are you finished? She asked quietly. Vextar looked surprised by the question. What? I asked if you're finished, Hannah repeated, her voice steady despite the pain. Because I am. Without another word, she turned and walked away from the crowd. Her brother appeared at her side, his face pale with shock and anger. Hannah, are you okay? Taman asked, putting an arm around her shoulders. I'm fine, she said, even though she wasn't. Let's go. As they walked away, Hannah could hear the crowd starting to talk again. Some were still laughing, others were discussing what had happened, but she didn't look back. She had been humiliated in front of representatives from across the galaxy. But more than that, she had been insulted for being human, for coming from Earth, for being herself. As they left the reception area, Hannah made a decision. She wasn't going to let this stand. She wasn't going to accept that this was just the way things were. Vextar thought he had put her in her place, but he had no idea what he had just started. The Deathworlder girl was done being civilized. Hannah sat in her small quarters aboard the human diplomatic ship, holding an ice pack to her swollen cheek. The room was tiny compared to the massive alien spaces she had seen, but it felt safe. Her brother Taman paced back and forth in front of her, his face red with anger. I can't believe he did that, Taman said for the 10th time. In front of everyone? Is the complete disrespect? ... It's done, Hannah said quietly. Getting angry won't change anything. We have to do something. We can't just let him humiliate humanity like that. The other species will think we're weak. Hannah looked up at her brother. What exactly do you want to do? File a complaint? Ask for an apology? I don't know, Taman admitted. Something. Anything. There was a knock at the door. Kim Do-yeon entered, carrying a datapad and looking serious. How are you feeling? He asked Hannah. I got hit by a 12-foot crystal alien, she replied. But I'll live. Do-yeon sat down across from her. I've been reviewing the footage from the reception. The entire galaxy will see what happened by tomorrow. Great Taman said bitterly. So everyone will know that humans can be slapped around by aliens and we do nothing about it. Actually, Doyen said slowly, there might be something we can do. Both Hannah and Taman looked at him with interest. I've been reading the arena's official rules, Dojan continued. They have protocols that go back thousands of years. Some of them are very old and rarely used. What kind of protocols? Hannah asked. Doyen activated his datapad and showed them a section of text. Rule 847. The right of vendetta. Any being who suffers public dishonor within the arena grounds may invoke this right to challenge the offending party to single combat. The room fell silent. Taman stared at the screen, then at Doyan, then at his sister. You're joking, Taman said finally. Not, Doyon replied. It's a real rule. It was created to prevent diplomatic incidents and settle disputes between species. But Vexstar is the apex champion, Taman protested. He's the strongest being in the galaxy. He's never lost a fight. That doesn't matter, Doyen said. Duh. Rule doesn't care about skill or strength. It only cares about honor. Hannah took the datapad and read the rule carefully. The language was formal and old, but the meaning was clear. If someone was publicly insulted or attacked in the arena, they could demand a fight to restore their honor. There have to be conditions. She said, requirements or limitations. There are, Doyan agreed. The challenge must be made within 24 hours of the incident. The combat must take place before sunset on the same day it's accepted. The challenged party cannot refuse without losing face. Losing face? Taman asked. It means looking weak or cowardly, Hannah explained. Something Vexstar would never accept. She continued reading the rule. There were more details about weapons, armor, and arena conditions. The combat would be one-on-one, with no outside help allowed. The fight would continue until one combatant was unable to continue. Is insane, Taman said. Anna, you can't be thinking about this seriously. But Hannah was thinking about it. She was thinking about the way Vexstar had looked at her, like she was nothing. She was thinking about the laughter from the crowd. She was thinking about how every human in the galaxy would be seen as weak if this went unanswered. What would I need to do? She asked. Hannah, no, Taman said firmly. You're an engineer, not a warrior. You've never been in a real fight in your life. I've been in fights, Hannah protested. Bar fights don't count, Taman shot back. This is the apex champion. He kills people for sport. Actually, Doyan said quietly, he doesn't kill people. The arena has strict rules about that. The fight ends when one person can't continue, not when they're dead. That's supposed to make us feel better? Taman asked. He'll just break every bone in her body instead of killing her. Hannah stood up and walked to the small window that looked out at the arena station. She could see lights moving in the distance, ships arriving and departing. The whole galaxy was watching this place, and now they were all watching her. What are my chances? She asked Doyen. Honestly, very small, he replied. Vexstar is stronger, faster, and more experienced. His crystal body is nearly indestructible, and he can channel energy as weapons. But Hannah sensed there was more. But he's never fought a human before. He doesn't know how we move, how we think, or how we fight. There's something else. Doyen called up another file on his datapad. I've been studying his previous matches. He's incredibly skilled, but he's also predictable. He uses the same attack patterns, the same strategies. He's won so many fights that he's become overconfident, so you think I have a chance. I think you have a very small chance, Doyen corrected. But it's not zero. Taman grabbed his sister's arm. Hannah, listen to me. I know you're angry. I know you want to fight back, but this isn't the way. If you lose, you'll be destroyed. If you somehow win, you'll make enemies of one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. And if I do nothing? Hannah asked. What happens to humanity then? Every alien in the galaxy will know that humans can be pushed around, insulted, and attacked without consequences. That's not your responsibility, Taman said desperately. Yes. It is, Hannah replied. We're representatives of Earth. When he hit me, he hit all of us. When he called us Deathworlder scum, he was talking about every human alive. She looked at her brother with determination in her eyes. I'm going to challenge him. Anna, please. I've made my decision, she said firmly. The question is, will you help me? Taman stared at her for a long moment. He could see that she had made up her mind, and nothing he said would change it. Finally, he sighed and nodded. What do we need to do? He asked. Doyen activated his datapad again. First, we need to formally file the challenge. I can help with the paperwork. Then we need to prepare for the fight itself. How long do we have? Hannah asked. If we file the challenge in the morning, the fight would have to take place tomorrow evening. That gives us about 18 hours to prepare. 18 hours to prepare for the fight of my life, Hannah said, against the strongest being in the galaxy. Are you sure about this? Taman asked one more time. Hannah touched her swollen cheek and remembered the sound of the aliens laughing at her. She remembered the way Vexstar had looked at her, like she was beneath him. Like all humans were beneath him. Sure, she said. The next morning, Hannah woke up early and put on her best clothes. She wanted to look professional when she filed the challenge. Doyen had prepared all the necessary documents. Written in the formal language required by arena rules, they made their way to the arena's administrative offices. The hallways were busy with aliens preparing for the day's tournament matches. Many of them stared at Hannah as she passed, and she wondered if they had heard about what happened at the UHS. The administrative office was run by a species that looked like giant insects with multiple arms. The clerk behind the desk examined Hannah's documents carefully. A right of vendetta challenge, the clerk said, his voice clicking and buzzing. We haven't seen one of these in over 50 years. Is everything in order? Doyen asked. Oh, yes. The clerk replied, all the forms are correct. But are you sure about this? Little human Vexstar is... formidable. I'm sure. Hannah said the clerk processed the paperwork and handed her a receipt. The challenge will be delivered to Vexstar within the hour. He has until noon to accept or refuse. And if he refuses, Taman asked. Then he loses honor in front of the entire galaxy, the clerk explained. No warrior of his reputation would allow that to happen. As they left the office, Hannah felt a mix of excitement and terror. She had just officially challenged the Apex champion to single combat. There was no going back now. So what do we do while we wait? She asked. We prepare, Doyen said grimly. We have a lot of work to do. 2 hours later, the arena's communication system crackled to life throughout the station. Attention all beings. The announcer's voice echoed through the corridors. The Apex champion Vexstar has accepted a right of vendetta challenge from Park Hannah of Earth. The combat will take place at sunset in the main arena. Hannah heard gasps and excited chatter from aliens throughout the station.
Oh.
News of the challenge would spread across the galaxy within hours. Well, Taman said, there's no backing out now. I never planned to back out, Hannah replied, but as she said it, she felt the weight of what she had done. In less than 10 hours, she would face the most dangerous warrior in known space. She would either prove that humans deserved respect, or she would be destroyed trying. Either way, the galaxy would remember this day. The Deathworlder girl had made her choice. Hannah had 8 hours to prepare for the most important fight of her life. 8 hours to figure out how to defeat a warrior who had never lost. 8 hours to save humanity's reputation in the galaxy. She sat in a small training room that Doyen had reserved for them. The walls were covered with screens showing videos of Vexstar's previous fights. Each video showed the same thing, the Crystal Champion destroying his opponents with brutal efficiency. Watch this one carefully, Doyen said, pointing to a screen. This is from 3 years ago. Vexstar versus Kroll, the Stonebreaker. On the screen, Hannah watched as Vexstar faced a massive rock-like creature that stood nearly as tall as he did. Kroll charged forward with incredible speed, but Vexstar was ready. The champion sidestepped at the last moment and struck Kroll with a blast of blue energy. The stone creature crumbled instantly. He always does that, Doyen explained. For his opponent to attack first, then counters. It's worked for 43 fights in a row. So he's defensive? Hannah asked. Not exactly. He's patient. He studies his opponent for a few seconds, then destroys them with one perfect attack. They watched more videos. Vexstar against a flying creature with razor-sharp wings. Vexstar against twin fighters who attacked from both sides. Vexstar against a shapeshifter who could turn into liquid. Every fight ended the same way, quickly and decisively. I noticed something, Hannah said after watching a dozen fights. He always attacks the same way. First he dodges to his right, then he charges up his energy, then he strikes. That's what I noticed too, Do-yeon agreed. He's incredibly skilled, but he's predictable. He's won so many fights using the same strategy that he's never had to change it. Taemin entered the room carrying food and drinks. He had been coordinating with the other human delegates, making sure Earth's government knew what was happening. How's the political situation? Do-yeon asked. Complicated, Taemin replied. Half the alien species think Hannah is brave for challenging Vexter. The other half thinks she's crazy. But everyone is watching. Everyone? Hannah asked. The entire galaxy, Taemin confirmed. This is being broadcast live to every Federation world. Betting pools have opened on 100 different planets. What are the odds? Hannah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know.
800 to 1 against you, Taemin said quietly.
Hannah nodded. She'd expected worse odds than that. Sumi entered the room carrying a datapad and looking excited. I've been studying Zephyrian anatomy all morning, she announced. I think I found something important. She activated her datapad and showed them a detailed scan of Vexstar's crystal body. Their crystal structure is incredibly strong, but it's not perfect. Look here, she pointed to several thin lines running through the crystal. These are natural stress points in the crystal lattice. Every Zephyrian has them. They're like tiny cracks that run through their entire body. Can we use that somehow? Hannah asked. Maybe Sumi replied. If you could hit one of these stress points with enough force, it might cause the crystal to fracture. But it would have to be a very precise hit with a lot of power behind it. How much power? More than a human punch could deliver, Sumi admitted. You'd need some kind of weapon or tool, Do-yeon was already thinking. What weapons are you allowed to use in the arena? Hannah checked the challenge rules on her datapad. Any weapon or equipment that I can carry myself. Our mechanical assistance. No outside help during the fight. It gives us some options, Do-yeon said. Let me make some calls. While Do-yeon worked on equipment, Hannah continued studying the fight videos. She noticed that Vexstar had other habits too. He always stood with his left foot slightly forward. He always raised his right arm first when charging his energy. He never looked behind him during a fight. He's overconfident, she realized. He's so used to winning that he doesn't think about what his opponents might do. That's his weakness, Taemin agreed. But how do you use that against someone who can kill you with one hit? I don't know yet, Hannah admitted, but I'll figure it out. An hour later, Do-yeon returned with several items. The arena quartermaster was very helpful, he said. Apparently, they're curious to see what a human will choose for weapons. He laid the equipment on a table. There was a set of lightweight armor made from some kind of flexible metal, a helmet with a clear face shield, several small devices that looked like tiny bombs, and a sword with an extremely thin blade. What's this? Hannah asked, picking up the sword. Monomolecular blade, Do-yeon explained. The edge is only one molecule. Thick. It can cut through almost anything, including crystal. Hannah tested the sword's weight and balance.
Ow.
It was lighter than she expected, and the blade seemed to disappear when she looked at it from the side. And these? She indicated the small, bomb-like devices. Micro-explosive charges, Do-yeon said. They're not very powerful, but they might be enough to crack crystal if placed correctly. How many can I carry? 6. That's all they had that would work with your size. Hannah picked up the armor and examined it. It was surprisingly light and flexible, designed to protect without slowing the wearer down. This is all good equipment, she said. But I still need a strategy. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Sumi provided detailed maps of Vexter's stress points. Do-yeon analyzed the champion's movement patterns and attack timing. Taemin helped coordinate their preparations and kept track of time. The key is going to be speed, Do-yeon explained. You can't match his strength or his energy attacks. But humans are faster than most aliens realize. Your reflexes are better too, thanks to growing up on a dangerous world. Earth's gravity is also stronger than most planets, Sumi added.
Hey!
That means your muscles and bones are denser than aliens from lighter worlds expect. You'll be stronger than you look, but not stronger than Vextar, Hannah pointed out. No, Sumi agreed, but maybe strong enough to use his own strength against him. As the afternoon wore on, more humans arrived to help with the preparations. Engineers worked on adjusting Hannah's equipment. Medical staff explained how to treat crystal cuts and energy burns. Even the ship's cook provided high-energy food to keep Hannah's strength up. I've never seen humans work together like this, Taman observed. Everyone wants to help. Because this isn't just about me anymore, Hannah replied. This is about proving that we belong in the galaxy. 2 hours before sunset, Hannah put on her armor and tested all her equipment. The monomolecular sword felt natural in her hand. The micro-explosives were attached to her belt where she could reach them quickly. The armor moved with her body like a second skin. How do you feel? Doyan asked. Scared, Hannah admitted, but ready. Remember the plan, he said? Stay mobile. Use your speed. Wait for him to make the first move, then counterattack. And most importantly, ... hit the stress points, Hannah finished. I know. You don't have to do this, Timon said quietly. It's not too late to withdraw. Hannah looked at her brother with a small smile. Yes, I do have to do this, and it is too late. She walked to the window and looked out at the arena. Even from this distance, she could see crowds of aliens filling the seats. Ships from across the galaxy had arrived to watch the fight. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when a human faced the Apex champion. Besides, she added, I have advantages that Vextar doesn't know about. Like what? Taman asked. I'm from Earth, Hannah said simply. I grew up on a world that tried to kill me every day. I learned to fight before I learned to walk. I survived things that would destroy most aliens. She turned back to face her brother and friends. Vextar is strong and skilled. But he's never faced a Deathworlder who was. Angry? And you're angry? Doyan asked. I'm furious, Hannah replied. He hit me. He insulted my entire species. He thinks we're beneath him. Her eyes hardened. I'm going to show him exactly what Deathworlders are capable of. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. In 1 hour, Hannah would walk into the arena too, face the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy. She felt fear and excitement mixing in her stomach. But more than anything, she felt determined. Win or lose, she was going to give everything she had. She was going to fight for humanity's honor and her own. Time to go, Doyan announced. Hannah picked up her helmet and headed for the door. Behind her, her brother and friends followed. In front of her waited the fight of her life. The Deathworlder girl was ready for war. The arena was completely full. 200,000 beings from across the galaxy had come to watch the impossible fight. Hannah could hear the roar of the crowd even through the thick walls of the preparation chamber. This is it, Taman said, giving his sister one last hug. Remember everything we planned? I will, Hannah replied. She was wearing her lightweight armor and had all her weapons ready. The monomolecular sword hung at her side, and the 6 micro-explosives were attached to her belt. The medical team is standing by, Lee Sumi said. If something goes wrong, they'll get you out of there immediately. Nothing's going wrong, Hannah said, with more confidence than she felt. I'm going to win this. Kim Do-yeon handed her a small device. Communication earpiece, he explained. I can give you advice during the fight if you need it. Is that allowed? Hannah asked. The rules say no outside help during combat, Do-yeon replied. But they don't say anything about receiving information. The chamber door opened, and an arena official appeared. It was one of the insect-like beings who ran the administrative offices. Park Hannah of Earth, the official announced. Yes. It is time. Hannah took a deep breath and walked toward the door. Behind her, she could hear her friends and brother calling out encouragement. In front of her waited the arena and the fight of her life. The tunnel leading to the arena floor was long and dark. As she walked, the sound of the crowd grew louder and louder. When she finally stepped into the light, the noise was overwhelming. The arena was even more impressive than she remembered. The fighting pit was a perfect circle about 50 meters across. surrounded by rising levels of seats that seemed to go up forever. Every seat was filled with aliens of every shape and size imaginable. As Hannah walked to the center of the pit, she looked up at the crowd. Some aliens were cheering for her, but most seemed to be waiting to see her destroyed. Were visible throughout the stands, most written in languages she couldn't read. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, the announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Welcome to the most unusual challenge in Apex tournament history. The crowd roared in response. In the red corner, the announcer continued. Standing 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighing 130 pounds, representing the death world of Earth, ... Park Hannah. Some cheers, but mostly silence. Hannah waved to the crowd anyway. And in the blue corner, standing 12 feet tall and weighing 800 pounds, your 7-time Apex champion, Vexter of the Zephyrian Empire. The crowd exploded in cheers as Vexter entered the arena. He walked slowly, his crystal body catching the lights and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. Blue energy pulsed through his body like a heartbeat. He stopped about 10 meters away from Hannah and looked down at her. Even with her armor and weapons, she looked tiny compared to him. You should have stayed in your quarters, little Deathworlder, Vextar said, his voice carrying clearly across the arena. This will not end well for you, we'll see, Hannah replied. The arena official who would referee the fight stepped between them. The rules are simple, he announced. Combat continues until one fighter cannot continue. No killing is allowed. No outside interference. Are both fighters ready? Ready, Vextar said confidently. Ready, Hannah agreed. The official raised his hand. The crowd fell silent. Even the background noise of the space station seemed to stop. Begin, the official shouted, and immediately left the fighting area. For a moment, neither fighter moved. They circled each other slowly, each studying their opponent. Hannah remembered Doyen's advice, let Vextar attack first. Then counter. Vextar raised his arms, and blue energy began to build between his hands. The energy formed into a spear of crackling light. This is how all your fights end, he said. Quickly, he threw the energy spear with incredible force. Hannah had been expecting this. It was exactly how he started most of his fights. She dove to the side at the last second, and the spear missed her by inches. The energy struck the arena wall behind her and left a smoking crater. Too slow, Hannah called out as she rolled to her feet. Vextar looked surprised. Most of his opponents were either dead or unconscious by now. He created another energy spear and threw it, but Hannah was already moving. Her training on Earth's dangerous world had given her reflexes that most aliens couldn't match. Stand still, Deathworlder, Vextar growled, throwing spear after spear. But Hannah kept moving. She ran in unpredictable patterns, sometimes diving, sometimes jumping, sometimes changing direction at the last second. The crowd was on its feet now, watching something they had never seen before, someone actually avoiding Vextar's attacks. Your turn, Hannah said. She pulled one of her micro-explosives from her belt and threw it at Vextar's feet. The small explosion wasn't very powerful, but it cracked the arena floor and sent crystal fragments flying. Vextar stumbled backward, more surprised than hurt. Possible, he said. Nothing can damage my crystal body. Everything can be damaged, Hannah replied. You just need to know where to hit. She threw another explosive, this time aiming for his left ankle where Sumi had identified a stress point. The explosion created a small crack in his crystal structure. Vextar looked down at the crack in shock. In 7 years of fighting, no one had ever damaged him before. Now you're angry, Hannah observed. Good. Angry fighters make mistakes. Vextar charged at her with a roar of rage. He was incredibly fast for something so large, but Hannah was ready. She waited until the last possible moment, then dropped to the ground and rolled between his legs. As she rolled, she placed another micro-explosive. Against his right ankle, the explosion created a second crack. 2 down for to go, she said, getting back to her feet. Vextar turned around now, limping slightly. Both his ankles were damaged, affecting his balance and speed. You think you're clever, he snarled, but I still have many ways to destroy you. He raised both arms and began charging up more energy than Hannah had seen before. Blue light surrounded his entire body, and the air itself seemed to crackle with power. "This will vaporize everything." "In the arena," he announced, "including you?" Hannah could feel the heat from his energy charge even from 20 meters away. This was his ultimate attack, something he had never needed to use before. "Doyen," she said quietly into her earpiece. "Any ideas?" "That much energy will have to discharge somewhere." Doyen's voice crackled in her ear. "If you can disrupt." His concentration, ... double quotes. Hannah drew her monomolecular sword. The impossibly thin blade gleamed in the arena lights. "Let's see how well you concentrate with a sword in your chest," she said. She ran directly at Vexstar. It was the last thing he expected. Everyone else had always run away from his ultimate attack. The champion hesitated for just a moment, surprised by her boldness. That moment was all Hannah needed. She leaped up and drove her sword directly into the stress point that Sumi had identified in his chest. The monomolecular blade cut through his crystal structure like it was made of glass. Vexstar screamed in pain and rage. His energy charge went wild, shooting in all directions instead of at Hannah. The crowd ducked as energy blasts struck the arena walls. "Impossible," Vexstar shouted, trying to grab the sword. "I am the Apex champion. I cannot be defeated by a Deathworlder." "Right," Hannah said, pulling her sword free and jumping backward. "You can't be defeated by just any Deathworlder." She pulled her last 3 explosives from her belt. "But I'm not just any Deathworlder. I'm angry." She threw all 3 explosives at once. One hit his damaged chest, one hit his left knee, and one hit his right shoulder. All 3 exploded at the same time, sending cracks running through his entire crystal body. Vexstar tried to stay standing, but his crystal structure was failing. The cracks spread wider and wider, and blue energy began leaking out like blood. "This ... cannot ... happen ... he said, his voice growing weaker. "It already did," Hannah replied with a sound like breaking mountains. Vexstar collapsed to the arena floor. His crystal body was still intact, but the cracks had damaged his internal structure too badly for him to continue fighting. The arena fell completely silent. No one could believe what they had just seen then. Slowly, the crowd began to cheer. It started with just a few voices, but it grew and grew until the entire arena was on its feet, screaming and applauding. The arena official ran onto the fighting floor. He looked at Vexstar, who was conscious but unable to move, then at Hannah, who was standing over him with her sword still in her hand. "The winner," the official announced, his voice echoing across the arena, "a new Apex champion. Park Hannah, of Earth." The crowd went completely wild. Aliens from 100 different worlds were cheering for the small human who had done the impossible. Hannah looked up at the setting sun visible through the arena's transparent dome. She had promised to take Vexstar's throne before sunset, and she had kept that promise with minutes to spare. "How?" Vexstar asked weakly from the arena floor. Hannah knelt down beside him. "You made 2 mistakes," she said. "First, you thought being strong was the same as being unbeatable. Second, you underestimated what a Deathworlder can do when you make her angry." She stood up and raised her sword above her head. The crowd cheered even louder. "We Deathworlders know our place," she called out, her voice carrying across the arena. "It's wherever we choose to stand." As the sun set completely, the new Apex champion walked off the arena floor. Behind her lay the former champion, defeated by someone he had thought was beneath him. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. The Deathworlder girl had kept her promise.